Well, thank you for joining us. We have one of the authors from the Game Changer book, Dr. Laura Cornell, with us. Thank you, Laura, for joining us.
Thank you, Natalie. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So I would love to ask some questions so the readers can get to know you a little better. Share with us what you do and give us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Dr. Laura Cornell, and I am a sacred business mentor, and I'm the founder of DivineFeminineYoga.com. And in Divine Feminine Yoga, we produce online conferences, summits, and also in-person live seminars, highlighting and promoting women's healing and empowerment through yoga.
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
And then also as a sacred business mentor, I'm privileged to work with many amazing women healers, teachers, leaders, and coaches all over the world who are wanting to grow a business, to be more fulfilled, more creative, to break through the money beliefs, which can hold so many of us yoginis back, spiritually oriented women, and build a business that is successful and that they love.
Wow, that's great. That's very powerful. So tell us why you wanted to, or that you thought it was very important to be a chapter in the Game Changer book.
Yeah, so when Iman invited me to write my story for the Game Changer book, it was so interesting to think about what would I write? And I had just over the summer, about a month before the invitation came from Iman, who I love, I became aware of an inner block that was holding me back from republishing my book. I published a book on the moon salutation, which is a yoga flow created by and for women. And I had written my master's thesis on it and then self-published it almost 20 years ago. And I've been sitting on it and waiting and knowing that it was a deep burning desire of mine to rewrite it and republish it under a different title. And over the summer, I had a dream that let me know a major block I had to finishing it. And that was that I needed to tell my story of incest with my father in order that it was going to be in that book. Mm-hmm. And I had never printed that story. I had never written it down before. And I realized that it was terrifying me. And so this was just an opportunity to face that challenge, to tell that story in a positive way, and remove a major block to my completing the moon salutation book. And so if I could just say a little bit more about that, it was so interesting. My mother passed on 6 weeks ago. And so she passed on before I wrote the story, but after I had decided that I was going to tell the story. And my mother was actually instrumental in my healing from the incest with my father. And very often, I tell this story of having been molested at my Sacred Businesswoman retreat. So for those of you who may have ever been to a Sacred Business retreat with me, you will have heard me tell that story. But I never talked about specifically what happened, and I never talked about how it affected me. Mm-hmm. What it did to me in my teen years and my young 20 years, which was really painful to live through, not a pretty time of my life. And as I say in the chapter, it's not fun to write about, which is maybe why I haven't talked about it that much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, but people will ask me, well, how can you be friends with your family? How can you say you're close to your dad? Or, and the truth is that I'm very close to my family, and that through the process of healing, my family became very close. And now, of course, it wasn't always like that. And so I think it's an unusual story. A lot of us have Me Too stories, and a lot of women are not able to reconcile with the person who created harm in their life. They're not able to heal that situation. And the fact that I did, and that my family did, is important, because it gives, I believe, all women hope that when we speak up, when we seek help from other women, when women can believe each other, I think sometimes other women can be our best allies, that healing is possible. So I have not been, limited in my life to the horrible things that I think can come from having some of the situations that I experienced. And So I think it's an inspiring story for that reason. And the interesting thing for me was in writing it down, I understood why I had founded Divine Feminine Yoga in a way that I had never understood. Like I've always told my money story, which, as I said, a lot of spiritual women have trouble with money. We don't think it's spiritual. We don't know how to manage it. We don't value it. And so I ran into trouble with a nonprofit that I founded, the Green Yoga Association. I've told that story many times, but I had not told the story of healing from incest. And that's what's in the book. And I just knew I had to tell it in order to be able to revise and get out the, break through a major block in my own life. And that's what I teach women, is breaking through the blocks that are holding you back from having that successful, powerful, and creative business that you want.
Yeah, we hear that from authors quite often, is once they get writing and that emotion comes out and you put it out there and you're vulnerable, right? You know, if you've never told that story, it's difficult, but it's also very healing for women or for people writing, any author. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for opening up. And it sounds like already that you're piecing things together and seeing the benefits of it.
It's very freeing. It's very freeing to tell your story, and women often will wait decades, as we've seen with the political news, or, women will wait decades because it's too embarrassing. We don't like to tell the personal details. We don't like to tell the effects it had in our life. They're not really very pretty. And so we need safe places to tell our story, and we need to share that healing is possible.
Yes, and that's the goal, is to heal and not let it bring you down, for the rest of your life, right? So share with us something. I mean, you just shared so much amazing stuff, but is there something that you did not put in your chapter that you could share?
It was so funny. After I wrote that chapter, before I gave it to you as the amazing editors and, book, constructors that you are, I shared it with a number of friends, and it was really vulnerable. It was not a fun week. My mom had just passed on. I gave myself a week or two completely off, and then all I wanted to do was write. And I was getting to write about my mom at the same time. It was painful writing it all down. A lot of those things I hadn't thought about or talked about in decades. And I wrote them all down, and then I took it to some friends to read. I didn't just mail it. I wanted to sit in their living room while I was watching them read it. I needed that for myself. I'm just getting even hot telling you this story. It's not hot, I guess. What?
I said, that's very cute.
It's real. I mean, I'm getting hot telling you this. So, yeah, I watched women read it, and I saw how they responded and where they were confused, or I got validation about the parts that were just really important, or they said, you need to spell this out more. I'm like, you're kidding, spell it out more. No, but I did.
Yeah.
And there was a lot that I left out, and I had people tell me, why didn't you put this in, or why didn't you put that in? And so there's, just literally a whole other chapter on this segment of my life that I could have included and I didn't, or that segment of my life. So I had to just pick one kind of theme running through, and it was my mom and my dad and my relationship with them and how we healed all of that. And there's also the whole situation with my uncle, which I just decided too much. And the reason I left that out was it's not as resolved inside of me, and it's not as resolved in my family, to be honest. And so it's like, it just felt too fresh, my own understanding of it and my family's understanding of it, and too close. And so, and not as clear really what happened. And so I just thought, let's just keep it to something that can be explained. And not that, I think for a Me Too story, most women will find that a lot of it can't be explained. And what I wrote down was difficult enough, and so I just want to say, if you're a woman who feels like, I couldn't write it down, you probably could. I remember the weekend before my mom passed on, my husband and I went for a walk, and I had already decided to write this story, but I didn't know what was going to be in it. I'm like, I need to tell stuff from younger than I've ever told before. And I'm like, I don't have an interesting life. Nothing happened. I had a disorder. That was so boring. I didn't tell my mom when I got my period. I just hid my bloody, whatever. And she found it. And it was horrible. And he was like, oh my goddess, you've got to write that down.
Right.
I mean, the amount of shame and the amount of hiding was so massive. And,
Right.
and so I was like piecing the pieces together. I was like, okay. And I'm really glad I did that actually before she passed, because once my mother passed on to the other side, to a different realm of communication, I'm just glad I got that clarity that I was going to tell these pieces, because then everything was more focused honestly on her passing and just reliving what she meant to me in my life, harnessing all of that, integrating all of that, and writing the story enabled me to integrate another layer of who she had been in my life, which was on the one hand, contributing by marrying and falling in love with my amazing father, and who then went on to do some things that were not that awesome, even though I think he's an awesome man. And their integrity, their love for their kids, their love for me, their love for my sister, and their flaws, their imperfections of both of them. And how we were able to say, okay, let's change this. We're going to speak up more here. You can do it too, Mom. You can help me. And she did. I didn't have to say that, but that was what was implied in my request of her. And she really stepped up in some amazing ways. And at the memorial on Monday, this is 3 days after her celebration of life, I got to hear amazing stories from other women. And I've had friends texting me or messaging me about how my mom was a second mom to them. I never knew all that.
That's amazing.
My mom was just this really powerful mother figure that I never actually felt I had when I was younger. And so I recovered her for myself, and then I've gotten to hear how she was like that for other women. So it's kind of interesting that it all comes together in that way.
What a nice way to remember her and to have that final thought of her. Yeah. So for people reading your chapter, what would you say your main message was from your chapter?
No matter what has happened to you, if you have a Me Too story, if you don't, and I believe that all women, we're affected by patriarchy. It's not that many years since the witch burnings. It's not that many years since the wife burnings or widow burnings in India. We carry that trauma in ourselves. We're supposed to be good girls. We're not supposed to speak up. Right. And there's something wrong with our bodies, with our sexuality. And it's not true. And experiencing trauma around that is unfortunately at this time in history still normal. Yeah. And it's something we can come together and help each other with. And so healing is possible, and get the support you need. Reach out to communities to find the place where you can step into all of who you are, because the world needs you.
Yep. And if there's women that are watching you now and you would have one takeaway for them, what would that be? Pretty much what you said, but yeah.
It's possible. I've had women say to me, oh, well, your parents supported you, so therefore you could. It's not true. What you need is to recover the divine feminine within, and a women's community. It doesn't matter if it comes from your biological mother, if it comes from your adoptive mother, if it comes from a community of women, or just from your own divine feminine practices, you can recover that. You can recover your wholeness.
Tell those women, don't suffer in silence. Like, reach out to people like you who could work with you and show you how to walk through those steps and heal.
Yeah.
So if someone did want to work with you or get to know you more and follow you, what would the best way for them to get hold of you?
So I would recommend going to divinefeminineyoga.com.
Okay.
We have several gifts on our website. There's a gift about yoga and business, or being a divine feminine woman healer and business, breaking through your money story. There's gifts about the moon salutation. You can learn to practice the moon salutation. Get on our email list. My moon salutation book will be coming out soon. And so stay, follow us, stay with us, be on our contact list. You can also go, check us out on Facebook, or, connect with me, Laura Cornell, on Facebook, or Divine Feminine Yoga. But I think the best place is our website.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to put this out there because I look at you and you're so fit and you're obviously so good in yoga. what would you say to someone like me that wants to do yoga and is scared to death because have, can you help me?
We have women of all shapes and sizes in our community.
Okay.
Round bodies, not round, but whatever. I've got a round body right here, but yeah, and it's one of the things that we really need to support each other in is our body self-esteem, is loving our body at any size. And there's been tons of research on it. Doesn't matter what weight you are, you can be slender, you can be round, that movement is important. So whatever shape or size you are, to be active and to be moving. And I'll say we have all shapes and sizes and colors and ethnicities of women in our community and at our seminars. Just so you know, that women of all shapes, sizes, ethnicities, and colors are welcome and find a place in our Divine Feminine Yoga community. And you can move and rest and find your inner Divine Feminine at any shape or size.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And congratulations once again on being one of the authors in the Game Changer book, Volume 3. We are so excited for this to come out. And I know that you are going to touch a lot of lives and really connect with those women that need that connection or just want to take their bodies in a new way and mindset.
Yeah.
So thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Natalie.